Hi, this is Doris with Something to Ponder. Now, this is the final episode in a series I've been calling Finding God in the Walking Dead. If you haven't seen any of the previous episodes, you might look at those. It'll give you a better context of what the series is about. Basically, we're looking at the similarities between how the living deal with the dead in the AMC original series, The Walking Dead, and how Christians deal with sinners. Now, in the last episode, we talked about how sometimes the dead are between the living and something they need to survive. So they have to make a decision. Either they're going to just walk away from what they need, or they're going to have to deal with the dead. Now, in the Walking Dead world, not every time, but most of the time, dealing with the dead means killing them, because there is a way to kill them. And when the dead are complete strangers, they're between the living and something they need to survive, and they're trying to eat you, there's not a lot of emotional baggage that comes along with killing them. However, when someone you love and care about, whether it's a spouse, a child, a sibling, best friend, whatever, when those people become the dead, then it becomes a little more complicated about how you deal with them. And not everyone is able to do the hard thing and to kill them. So they don't want to do that. So they make excuses to not do the hard thing. So what they'll do is they'll say, what if they come up with a cure? And then we can just give a cure. Maybe we can cure them, so they don't want to kill them. But then they know that they don't want them to hurt anyone else. So now what do? So they think, you know what? Let's just put them in the barn. And we'll just lock up the barn and tell everybody to stay away from the barn. And that way nobody gets hurt and they're safe over there. And that works fine until a group of people come along and they ask permission to camp, if they can camp out on the farm, because they're looking for a lost child and they don't want to leave the area until they find this lost child. And so they just, dead or alive, they just need to know where this, the truth about the child. And so they're given permission to stay on the farm. The only rule is stay away from the barn. Don't go in the barn. Because you see, they were hiding a secret in the barn. And that works okay for a while because the people who are staying there are respectful of the rules, until the wrong person finds out the secret. And then he decides that if they can't deal with the problem, that he will handle it for them. And he goes and he opens the barn. The dead come out. They begin to attack. The living do what they do naturally. They begin to fight back. The people who are on the farm are saying, no, stop, don't. And it's just this huge emotionally charged event. And there's probably not a Walking Dead fan out there who can't tell you how they felt when Sophia came walking out of the barn. Sophia is the child that they were looking for. That person that put her in the barn didn't know they were looking for a child. The people who were looking for her didn't know she was in the barn because they were trying to keep what was in the barn a secret. And so it just added another layer of emotion to an already charged event. Now, what does that have to do with the series we're talking about? It's this. When you have someone that you love and care about, but you know they're involved in things that could be harmful to them, and in the cases of addictions, they could even be harmful to others, when you start making excuses for their behavior, that's not dealing with the problem. And sooner or later, someone's going to come along and deal with it for you. And when they do that, it's going to be an emotionally charged event. Probably it's going to be an emotionally charged event either way, but at least if you are instigating it and you're the one who's taking charge, then at least you can maybe control your emotions from the situation, and at least you know where you stand with it. Now, in this series, we've been looking at, in these kind of situations, we've been looking to Jesus for our example of how to handle these situations. And we've been doing, looking at it, we've been looking at the series in John chapter 8. we've been looking at how Jesus handled the situation in which a group of men brought before him a woman who was caught in the act of adultery. And we've been looking at how, what the things he did and did not do in that situation and how he handled it. Now, I'm not going to read the scriptures again because we've already read them in the previous episodes, but if you need to refresh, it's John chapter 8, verses 1 through 11. Now, if you read down through there, nowhere in that whole passage did Jesus ever look at the woman and say, I'm so sorry this happened to you. This is not your fault. Those men, they were trying to get to me and they just used you to do it. They should not have done that. I'm just so sorry you got caught up in all of this. He never did that. He did not offer her any excuses for her being in this situation that she was in. In fact, at the end of verse 11, he looks down at her and he says, go and sin no more. So the fact that he said sin no more implies that he's acknowledging the fact that she messed up. He's just saying, go, don't do that anymore. Don't do it anymore. So while he didn't offer her any excuses, he also did not castigate her for her sin. He did not yell at her, or he didn't throw up his hands. Nowhere in there did he throw up his hands at her in frustration and go, what were you thinking? This is all your fault. If you hadn't been doing what you were doing, those men would not have been able to use you, and you almost got yourself killed. He never did that. In fact, if you take this set of scriptures literally, up in verse 7, where he says, let him who is without sin be the first to cast the stone. He's the only one there who is legitimately without sin. He's the only one there who has the right to throw a stone, and he did not. In fact, he did just the opposite. In verse 10 and 11, he looks at her and he says, woman, where are your accusers? And she says, I have none. And he said, neither do I accuse you. That's the hardest thing for us to do. When we have this person that we love and care about and we're afraid for them, we tend to want to yell at them when they get caught up, and then we finally get into this situation with them where they're caught or where something goes wrong, and we're like, what were you thinking? I have told you over and over and over to stop doing this, to stop acting like this, but you won't listen. He said, and it's all your fault. If you hadn't been doing this, you wouldn't be in this situation. He said, you almost got yourself killed. It's so hard for us not to do that. But nowhere in that passage did Jesus do that. For us, we're that way because we're worried about them, because we fear for them and we want them to change. Now, in the beginning of this episode, I said that there was a way to kill the dead. Because that's the problem they have in the Walking Dead world, is that how do you kill something that's already dead? Because you can take your gun out and you can shoot them until you run out of bullets. You can shoot them in the chest. You can run over them with your car. You can throw them off of a cliff, and they're still going to be trying to eat you. All you've done is add more damage to an already deteriorating body. And that's what our words do to this people that we love when we just continue to nag at them over their behavior. And we're doing it because, like I said, we're afraid for them and we want them to change. The problem is we can't change them. Only they can change them. It's something they have to do. The way that in the Walking Dead world, the way that you kill the dead is to either shoot them or kill them in their head. It has to be a wound here that will permanently kill them, which I found is interesting in the context of this series, in that because in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, it says that we are transformed through the renewing of our mind. So if you want your person to change, it's that change has to begin here. They have to want to change. True, lasting, permanent change is something that takes place in the heart and the spirit. But until they want to change here, in their mind, their heart and their spirit can't engage in the battle. So it's something they have to want to do. And no matter your excuses that you make for them, no amount of yelling at them is going to make them want to change their behavior in any way. Now, what you do to help them change their behavior, that's between you and God. It's like, in some cases it may take some professional, you might need to get some counseling, but in any instance, you still have to use the counseling or the advice you get, and then you need to pray for wisdom and discernment and to listen to God about how you're going to apply that in your situation, because your person and your situation is unique to you, and it's unique to them, and God knows how you need to act and move and behave. So sometimes you need to seek His advice first before you open your mouth, because He may just tell you to shut up. Because if you're just continually nagging them, all you're doing is fighting the dead, which brings us full circle back to where we started in this series. Fight the dead, fear the living, and that is not what we want to do. So I hope that I have given you some things to think about and to ponder for a while, and to at least make you stop and think before you speak when you are with someone you love, or even a person that you're like going, I can't believe they said that, I can't believe they did that, I can't believe they're that way. Just give them some grace and just stop and think. And because we're not supposed to fight the dead. It's like I said at the very beginning, we're not supposed to fight the dead. We're supposed to be offering the dead life. And sometimes it's up to you as to which way they choose to go with it. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the series. I'm glad it's over. Thank you. Bye.